And I really missed it in my own experience of shopping. I would go to Wakala and become really hot and lost, and try to shop on Instagram, vintage resellers, and lose my orders. So I thought, okay, I think there could be a better way of shopping and of, allowing also people to sell their clothing. So that's something that I thought was really important, is that obviously also, we all try to donate our clothing often, but there's a lot of these things that, I would love to have someone else, have or carry that understands what it comes from, etc. So that's a big part of it for me, was really just wanting to have that experience here and thinking that it's lacking in Egypt.
So actually, speaking of vintage, a lot of people don't know that there are different categories, that can be described as, vintage or something that you resell. So can you tell us a little bit more about what vintage is, and why is it important to understand it more deeply?
Definitely. So that's something that we're also still constantly kind of redefining. And the official definition of vintage is something that's older than 20 years. I do think that we should kind of broaden that definition, and we also do that at Lipsy, right? We don't just call it secondhand or thrift or pre-love. There's a bunch of different ways that you can describe it. But when it comes to vintage specifically, I feel like not only does it have to do with 20 years and older, but it really stands for a certain era, a certain time of craftsmanship, and kind of, winking at that and continuing the story of when it was conceptualized, which I think is really beautiful and really ties into, as a consumer and culturally, that we're not just buying something that's being made for the cheapest possible price and having the cheapest possible material, but we're buying something that someone has thought about, has crafted with their hands, and potentially also carries a story from when they wore it. So I'm sure a lot of us have gone into our grandmother's closet, for example, and found beautiful things. And I feel like it really, deepens the love and the respect for the craft when you also know that there's a story behind it, that this person has worn it in an important time of their life, etc. So it's a little bit about just vintage in general.
Also, fashion holds a lot of history. So when you're buying something vintage, you're also buying a movement that was in the past, whether it's a political movement, an empowerment movement. So it's not, what we're saying basically is that not all vintage and pre-loved is vintage. It can be pre-loved, but it doesn't mean that it's vintage. And it's important to have this distinction. So my next question is for Norhan. So you've built Saqhoute on the idea of slow fashion, and you've been integrating modular design into your ethos. So how do you design for longevity, and what does modularity add to the way people experience your clothes?
So for this part of the conversation, I just prepared a few slides for you to show you. It would have been very difficult to get the modular pieces, but one of the things we realized when I was still researching what kind of brand it's going to be is that back in 2015 and 16, it was very hard to identify what kind of fabrics I can use that are still sustainable and have very low impact on the environment. Okay, and also at the same time impact economically and socially the people working on it positively. So we started researching ways of creating fashion that will last long. And modular design was a concept available in architecture a lot. So it's basically building blocks or basics that you put together to create multifunctional areas or spaces. It also works in furniture design. And so the final thing, I came across a book. It's a Scandinavian writer. Her name is Christine Namaki. And the book was talking about modular design in fashion. It can range from very innovative pattern making to actually pieces that are designed with life cycle elongation in mind. So you always think of how long can this garment last in someone's wardrobe. And so we wanted to create something that whether from a design point of view, it gives us as a brand room to edit it when the time comes, after you wore it for like 10, 15 years and you maybe your body changed. The sleeves are a bit tight. So is there room to remove the sleeves and still make it relevant and something that you would wear? Is there a room that we can widen it a bit? Can you pass it on to someone else with a different taste and they can still wear it in a different way? Or you wear it in different occasions in different ways? And this is what basically we came up with. I'm sorry. So pieces that are detachable from one another. So you create a jacket. This is one jacket. You buy it as one piece. It comes with two different bottoms, for instance, and you can wear it as a very normal safari parka-like jacket, or you can detach it to be a cropped version of it that you can wear as a top or a jacket, or you can color block it with a different color. This is the other variation of it. And so we also created, after we launched this jacket and we realized a lot of people love it, we created a cropped version only of it, so you can buy the top as well. So if you previously bought one top color and you have the two bottom pieces already with it, you can buy the other top color on its own. Or if you're someone who's not interested and you know that you're going to only wear it as a cropped piece, you can just buy the cropped piece as well. We create pieces that look as uniform sets, but you can detach them at the waist, so it becomes a skirt and a separate top. Same for a jumpsuit, it can become a trouser, which means if this is a heavyweight cotton trouser, and this is a very summery look, once you detach it, this heavyweight cotton trouser can be worn into fall and worn again early spring. So you wear it most time of the year. And this was one of our biggest experimentations. It was a double-sided linen dress that came in 3 different pieces. And the variations that can come out of it were 16 different variations of how you can wear it. Pictured are only 8, but you can have a double of that when you play around with it. So you reverse the skirt, you reverse the top, there's an overskirt that you can play around with it. You can wear this on its own, any of the 3 pieces on their own. And this extends not only to our own garments, but also into our space. So our store actually is a modular store in itself. Thank you. Because it's a very small space in downtown Cairo, we needed to think of how we're going to use it. So we also created something that can turn into removable racks, a workshop space, and you have a little section here where you can also not only let it be decorative, but also display small accessories and products in your checkout counter. So this was the idea of modularity to us. It gave us options. It gave the users options on how they can wear and interact with fashion and expand the horizon a bit, not to limit it to just putting on something and leaving. That's it.
So growing with your clothes and changing with your clothes. As a consumer, it's important to think about this when you buy pieces. And as a designer, if we have designers in the room tonight, it's important to think about it when you design pieces as well. So I have a question for Bahga now. So your work begins with plastic that most of us would throw away. But you're turning it into something that's wearable, and that takes an enormous amount of work. So from sorting, cleaning, transforming, can you tell us a bit about the biggest challenges that come from a journey like this one?
Honestly, the challenges are insane, but I would say the challenges would start from the beginning, and I would say it starts with starting off used to begin with. So actually thinking about the idea of just going to the garbage city, which is Manshayat Nasser, and being okay, I want to be a part of this, and you look like a completely different person who doesn't belong whatsoever. You're so out of place, first of all. Second of all, you're a woman, so no one wants to hear, no one is taking you seriously, and you're really young. So you're still
in your university stage, you're a woman, and you're saying, oh, I want to be a part of this ecosystem. And this ecosystem doesn't have any place for you. So, and you're kind of imposing a threat to that ecosystem. So to basically build this rapport and to actually create this relationship with people of Masjid Nasr, the women there, and to actually give them the opportunity to be a part of the band was something that took its time, and it was one of the most important things that we tried to work on, but it was one of the biggest challenges that we had to face. Moving forward was actually working with plastic. So making plastic into a durable leather-like material is not something that you would expect out of a material like plastic. Because at the end of the day, if you actually buy some groceries in a plastic bag and you just put a little bit too much, this plastic bag is basically going to rip. So how am I going to make it work and for it to be looking good and functional, and at the end of the day, tell the consumer, you know what, you need to replace your leather bag and actually buy this bag because it's actually going to work. And all they can think about is plastic bags are not very, trash first of all, and second of all, plastic bags are not very durable. So this bag is probably going to last me for like a week, I would say. So this was a very big part that we had to work on, which is changing the customer's perception in general, making them understand the value behind the product, and making sure that we're creating products that actually look good. Because as we were speaking, a product that is just named sustainable is not going to be something that would change people's mind, would make them gravitate towards actually buying it, because that's not enough at the end of the day. I would love to contribute back to the society and give back to my community, and I would like to wear something that looks interesting and unique, but at the end of the day, if I have to change it next week, then this is not going to work, and it's probably going to make me go back to my old ways. So this is not changing what a Fuse is trying to bring up, which is try to think more of a sustainable route. Try to buy things that are more sustainable. It doesn't have to be made out of plastic, but it's the mindset shift in itself. So working on these pillars was one of the main things that we had to do, and we had to put upon ourselves that it's our job to educate people. It's not only about selling a product, because selling a product is one of the things that we do, but it's not the only thing that we do. So working on creating workshops all the time, working with kids so we can actually start with younger generations and making them understand how they can get creative with the material and play with it themselves and create something out of it that they would actually enjoy and go back home with and talk about to their parents. And even the parents have their mindset shifted from their kids. It's not even the other way around at this point. So this is one of the most interesting things that we've done, and working obviously with the corporations and working with institutes that want to give it a chance and to change and to make their next giveaways out of banners that they've used in their past campaign, or like changing their they know that they use a lot of plastic and they actually want to contribute and give back to the community and try to eliminate the waste, or maybe at least decrease it in a way, so they would want to be a part of this as well. So creating the product is one thing, but trying to put the mindset out there and trying to make people understand that plastic or leftovers of textile are not trash. You can do so much with it even at home. So that was the main idea, and yes, it takes a lot of time to do the R&D and it takes a lot of time to change the perspective, but it's definitely worth it.
And you've seen a change in sales as well, right?
Definitely.
In the customer's response to the product. Yeah.
100%.
Actually, talking about education, Bahga has some pictures of the process and the change of like the plastic into an actual product.
as is. خلينا once we change.
Okay.
Okay, so this is basically the process of our signature bag, the Lolita bag. So starting from basics, plastic bags. So I'll show you the bag in question. So this is the bag, which is the final product. And this is actually how the bag looked as raw material. So you take the plastic and then using heat and pressure, you actually can change it to the plastic sheet that you can see here. This plastic sheet is giving a leather-like material in a way that is more durable and could be cut into pieces. And on the next stage, we actually cut it so we can create the patron. So you create that pattern, and then basically we have the cut parts, and then we have the inside of the bag. So everything gets sewn together. And then you have the final product. This is all made from the plastic and by the hands of women and refugees in Manshayat Nasr. So this is like the most interesting part for me, honestly speaking, to get into the whole idea and be like, okay, me seeing the women actually through vocational training learn how to make this and learn how to make the plastic bags and how to give them the chance to actually create and to do something bigger and to have a sustainable income stream and to feel like they're actually contributing to the welfare of their families is something that's just beyond carrying a product. So the idea all along of Upfuse is just not stemming from having a product that's only eco-friendly, but the idea is that your purchase is actually helping the community around us and giving back so we can actually create more and generate more and take that waste and turn it into more, not only products, but to create more opportunities out of it.
And creating a culture as well. When you're going to start a sustainable business, you can't just think about one aspect of sustainability. You need to think about everything that has to do with ethics. There's no point in doing something sustainable if you're not going to think about the community that's going to be affected, on the back end of things. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yes, do you want to touch it?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yes. It does feel like that.
So actually talking about education and consumer awareness, I asked Norhan to talk to us about fabric literacy.
Yeah.
So why is it such a powerful step for consumers, and what are some greenwashing tricks that they can be aware of, and what changes do you hope people can make one day?
I think this is a lot of the awareness component, I would say, falls on the brands themselves. Like, we don't necessarily push all the responsibility onto the consumer. So part of what we need to do as brands is to bring awareness, and all of us do that in different ways in our own fields. And one of the things that we can help customers with is help them identify different materials. So actually what we decided to do, which is not very conventional in panels, is that we wanted to show you a few fabrics, and basically there is a lighter test that we can do. We're just hoping to find a lighter, and we will show it to you shortly. But you just, even when, obviously any of us can take fabric samples, there is an institute that can test these fabrics for you, but this requires a lot of money. So as a small brand struggling in the sustainable world, that's very unrealistic. As a consumer, it's also unrealistic. Our fabric suppliers, current fabric suppliers, who primarily supply us with fabric waste, dead stock, they do that. So they send someone to the factories to double test the material and to see if this material is genuinely cotton or natural fiber. But what we do is, while we're buying fabrics, or when you, of course, you won't be able to do this with garments, but the more you do it with fabrics, you can start to recognize fabrics from touching them and seeing them and looking at the weave. So I will try now, and hopefully we don't start a fire. But basically what happens with fabrics, linen or cotton, is that it's similar to paper. Once it burns, it turns into ash. And that's like a very natural evolution of fabric. But because synthetic materials are essentially made out of plastic, and plastic is made out of petroleum, they turn into little plastic particles. So even if you have something that looks natural, it might be mixed with 10%, 20%, 30% polyester or nylon. Or nylon and elastane are the worst for the environment. So reading up on actually the different materials and testing out the lighter test at home might be a start, but just be like very aware of when you're doing it. So this, and I'll pass it around and you guys can touch it. You'll feel that the end of the piece turned hard, like plastic. So this is when you know that this piece of fabric is 100% plastic. You guys can try it out as well. This is actually the one I'm wearing. This is cotton from El Amreya, and everyone knows El Amreya here, obviously. It's 100% cotton, or so they said. We'll find out together if they lied. But even the smell of it, it smells like burnt paper, if the ones at the front can smell it. And it falls apart like paper, becomes ash. So you can actually tell this is 100% cotton versus this is 100% synthetic fiber. And then you have things that are in between, things that are blended. This is a cotton blended with polyester. And it's slightly harder to identify because the percentage of cotton is actually higher, much, much higher. It's the majority of the composition. So this is one of the simple ways that you can test out if you're buying fabric yourself. After a while, actually, what I started to do is I started to recognize with simple tests, like if it's 100% woven cotton, if it doesn't stretch, it means that highly likely cotton. You start understanding by touch and feel that something is, probably this is not 100% linen. This probably has a little bit of polyester. So doing this over and over is something that can help you learn the different compositions, and then you create some sort of muscle memory. And especially when you buy vintage pieces in different stores, it becomes very helpful because sometimes the labels are washed out. And so if you want to buy a natural fiber, because you prefer to not put plastic on your body, for instance, is that it helps you out, actually. In whatever the spectrum is, you can identify if a brand is not being honest about their composition of the fabrics that they are using and so on. So we have a shopping guide on our website. If you go onto our website, this is also another thing that you can do. If you don't just know how to identify the fabrics, there's a set of 11 questions. If you, between yourself, answer no to the majority of them, I would recommend not buying the item. Just keep it. Or do the 24-hour tests in your cart, in your shopping cart. Wait until the next day or back to the store and see if you actually want to buy the piece or not. All of these practices are very simple practices for consumers to reduce their consumption or improve the way they consume.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I give myself a week. If I still think about it, I'll buy it. If I don't,
give yourself an entire week. Not everyone has the stamina.
Brigitte is even better. She told me one day that no, if she thinks about it, it's done. It's like she wore it.
That's actually good.
So actually now my question is for Lara. So when someone buys a vintage piece instead of new, what are they really saving in terms of water, energy, emissions? Can you put that into perspective for us?
Definitely, I think it's a very underspoken about part of participating in vintage or thrifting. Obviously, it's also cool to wear something that not everyone has or that you can't access any longer, which circles back to kind of the first answer, right? That you get to carry something with heritage, with a story, with a high level of handicraft. But it's obviously a very important aspect is climate, right, and sustainability, and the effects of also not purchasing fast fashion. So fashion is actually one of the most wasteful industries in the world. There's a lot of very interesting documentaries and research that's been done on the amount of piles and piles of textile and clothes, and Africa is actually a continent that houses most of that waste. So it's very near to home for us, obviously. And yeah, I think that that's a really, really big part that we have to not forget. Also, what also happens is that a lot of these donations that people make of clothing actually end up in those same piles, right? So you need to have a lot of resources to be able to actually sort through them and make sure that they get to the right people, which oftentimes just doesn't end up happening and it ends up in a landfill instead. So just to give you a little bit of an insight, producing one cotton t-shirt, for example, takes 2,700 liters of water. So that's around what one person consumes in 2 years. So I think it's really relevant to also think about when we're purchasing, a vintage piece, that we're not contributing to this constant cycle of consuming, which I love that you already gave everyone a good tip on, how to just consume less and consume smarter. And I think that that's a huge part of the ethical aspect of consuming vintage, right? Is you're supporting basically people around you, right? It's coming from someone's closet or someone's personal collection, which is always nice to support that. But also that you're just not contributing to fast fashion and thinking consciously about what you're purchasing instead of just always, like producing more and more and more, especially when it's very, very low quality. So I think you mentioned that before, like we always think about also one man's trash is another man's treasure. And I think that's really, really relevant when it comes to this for all three of us in very different ways. So yeah, that's why purchasing vintage, you're just not contributing to the very wasteful fast fashion industry specifically.
And be very careful about like donations and charities and things like that. It's better. I prefer if you like sell your clothes on Lipsy than or be very specific of the charities that you decide to work with, because it does, as Lara said, end up in landfills. There's, I think, a garbage truck full of clothes every 30 seconds or every second that ends up in a landfill somewhere in the world, most of them in our parts of the world. So if you can buy vintage, it's always better. Now, I want to ask a question to everyone. We're doing a bit of a discussion vibe. So you've each faced resistance when starting a sustainable business in Egypt. What have you learned about changing these mindsets, and what actually convinces people to see value in your product and the things that you're doing?
As you were saying before, resistance, definitely. If I'm going to come up and tell you, like, because we're talking 10 years ago. So if I come up and tell you 10 years ago, hi, I just got you this bag and it's made out of plastic bags, you're going to be like, okay, like, is this for real? Is this a joke? Is this my gift? And I think this is what took the most time out of all, to work on changing that perspective and to change the perspective of how plastic is being perceived and how my relationship with plastic is not going to end when I'm like done with my groceries or like my shopping trip and I'm just going to throw it in the trash and it's just trash. That's one thing, and it took us years, honestly speaking. And it took us also years to perfect the material as well. So when we started 10 years ago, the bag didn't look like this. Let me just say that. It looked like it was going through it a little bit. It needed some time. It needed some time, definitely. And this is one of the things that I'm very proud of, to be honest. It was a process, and it took time and a lot of work and a lot of R&D. And it's one of the things that I'm very proud of, because I've seen a few throughout the 10 years grow in the space of, how can I raise more awareness? How can I work on myself to better the product quality that I'm putting out there, so I can actually not only try to make people understand what I'm throwing the trash and I'm looking at plastic as something that's like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. Someone else is going to do so. And to work on the quality so people can actually, I can actually make them understand the value behind it even better. So this is one of the things that I'm very happy for, and actually working on projects that help people see plastic in a different dimension. So it's not necessarily I'm selling a product to a consumer, but it's mostly when someone gets a giveaway from a brand, for example. Let's say one of the things that we've done recently was with Sumabe. So we were talking about banners. Banners, at the end of the day, we see them all the time on the streets, and then but we never think about where this banner is going to end up. When it's over, I just see the new banner and I never think, oh, where did this banner actually go? So this banner actually ends up in the landfill, as you all know. So we actually collaborated with them to work on how we can take this banner and turn it into something that they can actually use later on. So the idea that we came up with was actually to make an ice bag out of it. So this cooler bag basically was made out of their latest campaign, and now they're giving it as gifts to their residents in Sumabe. So this was one of the most interesting projects that I honestly enjoyed very much. And one of the projects that we have so many, like Neutrogena, for example, just actually worked with us to create like a makeup pouch that they can put their latest makeup and skincare in. So to have all of these brands actually have their mind shift and to change, instead of having, because they can create a very beautiful pouch at the end of the day that doesn't have to be out of plastic, but they actually believed in the message that we're trying to send and they wanted to be a part of this movement. So this mind shift or this change took years, but it was honestly very worth it. And the work that everyone puts in from the start till the end, like, I mean, working on the marketing is just like one of the last steps. It's mostly focusing on awareness. It's mostly focusing on how can I make the piece look the best and how can I make people understand that it's just like any other product that you're going to buy, but this product is just more. And I want them to see that in different ways and forms. And it's honestly not only about talking about, oh, this product is sustainable. You need to buy it because it's sustainable. You need to buy it because Batul, one of our favorite artisans, worked on it, and you need to love it because she put in so much work. This is the added value that you get, but the product itself is actually really nice. I want people to feel like they actually want to go out with it and they want to enjoy it and bring it on their night outs and to have it on their trips. So building all that definitely takes time, which is one of the things that you need to be very persistent with if you want to have a sustainable brand. It's going to take time. It's not going to be an easy process. It's not going to be very profitable. It definitely needs to be profitable so it could be sustainable. But at the end of the day, it will definitely take time. So that process in itself is not for the weak, but definitely very rewarding.
So the question was about resistance, right?
Yeah.
So I think that also builds on what you said. A lot of it is about education. What we're building at Lipsy, a part of that is definitely still helping people understand and also destigmatize, right? The idea of buying secondhand or thrifted or vintage or pre-loved, whatever you want to call it, clothing. So I definitely was met with resistance. So we're technically a startup, right? So we're a small company and now we're expanding and talking to different people in the startup ecosystem in Egypt. I was met with resistance from mainly probably men in their like mid 40s, 50s who are kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, you think people are going to really want to buy secondhand clothes? Like, we would never do that. But I think we've proven otherwise so far, and hopefully we can continue that. But I think a really big part of that definitely is just culture and stigma, and that by, hopefully going hand in hand with the idea of that it's better for the planet, that it's also better for your sense of style to have, you know, a wider and broader range of things. You'll never show up to a dinner or a birthday with the same, wearing the same as someone next to you, which is quite a big win, I think. But yeah, I think that was a really big part of that resistance, of kind of people really questioning, oh, like, this is never going to work. People aren't interested in that. And I mean, even for my family, if like 7-8 years ago, I told them, oh, I'm going to Wakela, like my parents would be like concerned, probably. And now, you know, you have like cool influencers and everyone going to Wakela. It's becoming a lot more normalized. So I think that part of the resistance is potentially generational. I'm really proud to be just on the cusp of Gen Z, but I still claim that. But I'm really proud of our generation and you know, that we're really like being pioneers when it comes to that, and also, yeah, destigmatizing something that I don't think should be stigmatized. So my answer started becoming to these people who would question me. I say, so when you go buy furniture, you think buying an antique is like not as cool or it's not as great, so you'd rather go to IKEA. And that's when they started kind of catching on a little bit more. So that's the biggest resistance, really, just people who question it, if people are going to be using it, but also people who work in business and say, oh, this isn't a business that's going to be able to grow. People aren't going to be wanting to do this, as well as, yeah, the stigma of selling your clothes, right? I think that's also something that's we're still working on. So, for example, something that we added to that, you know, to kind of also give a nod to our culture of, you know, charity, and that's really important, is that you're able as a seller on Lipsy actually donate a portion or all of your earnings of your item to a charity. So we've teamed up with 4 charities, and I think that that's really important, right, to also understand and respect where people are coming from when they offer resistance, and always see it as a challenge to grow, as opposed to someone putting down your idea or putting down the way that you believe people should consume. I think that's something that's really important, and I'm sure we've all faced this. Like you said, it's not easy. It's a hard battle, but I think always just, yeah, opening up to criticism or to resistance with an open mind and trying to understand where that person comes from as a business, but also as an individual. I think that is really helpful to grow and to, you know, get everyone on board. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to prove anyone wrong, right? I'm trying to get as many people in on consuming differently and more consciously and with more respect for the pieces and for each other and the environment.
So before specifically talking about my brand, I'll talk about, I agree with you on everything you said, both of you, but the vintage experience, I remember buying secondhand back in 2010 and 2011 abroad, and that was quite more normalized than here. And back then, just a few years later, people launched in Egypt a platform called Thrift Shop. And unfortunately, the market wasn't ready for it yet. So just a few years in, they had to shut down the platform. And in those 10 years, things changed completely, even in Egypt. So I think the change is really, really big. The resistance, yes, is still there. And on my specific product category, so what we're trying to do is offer in sustainable fashion diversity in products. So someone is upcycling plastic, someone is selling secondhand, someone is offering very intricately made pieces that are highlighting artisanship and hand embroidery, for instance. So that's our case. And obviously, when you have someone work on a hand embroidery of a shirt for like 5 hours or 6 hours per day, you need to pay them the wage that justifies working for that long on that piece and have a dignified quality of life. This makes the piece expensive. Also even if I'm using that stock fabric from cotton and linen and denim, this still makes the fabric more expensive than your average polyester fabric that is brand new. So the biggest resistance, and we were attacked so much in our DMs back in 2018 when we launched, and up until today, but the mindshift change that we saw is that these attacks are reducing, and the people reacting to pricing is different. And so we understand that Egypt as a culture and heritage and story as Egypt has so much to offer. And for you to offer something like this, it takes a lot of work and a lot of people behind it. So we take people behind the scenes to try and change their mind, whether through doing workshops, hand embroidery based, or upcycling little fabric pieces. So when you work yourself with the pieces, you realize how long and how complicated it is. And if you look at any brand in the world, they are receiving a lot of backlash today because they decided to transform their legacy of crafts and artisanship from it making them a luxury brand sought after all over the world to producing in China, for instance, and reaping all the benefits. With sustainable fashion, you are caring about people and planet, so, and it's called the triple bottom line. You cannot do that because, and as a brand, what we ask people also to hold us accountable for is transparency and honesty. If a brand is willing to share the details of how things are made, you will realize that most of the cost of the item and this high price of this item has to do with the material and the labor more than anything else, and the team members that are working on the brand. But how much money you're making, it's almost exactly the same, if not less, because we're struggling with sustainable fashion, than a normal brand that doesn't really care much about the environment and sustainability. So I think it's very important to take everyone behind the scenes to reconnect people to how things are made, because at the point when Zara decided to do just-in-time fashion production and send manufacturing in Bangladesh and China and Far East Asia, the consumer became disconnected. It used to be a shop with a workshop in the back. So when you go and buy something, you see how people are working and you are still close to the story of the garment. Now it's not like that anymore. So re-establishing this connection takes so long. And we're just too early. That's what I would say. And this is actually what some investors told us. You're pioneering in something, but you guys are too early. And that's okay because someone needs to start. But we need to find a way to remain alive, basically, as humans and as brands. But so the attacks became less and they became more inquisitive. Instead of saying, oh, who do you think you are to charge something that expensive? It became, oh, it's so beautiful, but why is it so expensive? And then we open a conversation. And once the conversation opens, they fall in love with the story and the piece and they relate to it. Whether you're Egyptian or from anywhere in the world, their stories are quite similar because they're human stories at the end of the day. So you do get connected to the garment. And when you buy that, a lot of people told us, and this is something we hold very deep and cherish it a lot, is that this is a piece I'm going to keep in my wardrobe forever. Or this is something I'm going to keep for the next 20 years. So, and if they say that without us telling them that, then we were able to communicate it without talking through a garment. And that's 100% something successful, and we broke the barrier of this resistance. And the final thing I would say is we as Egyptian brands and designers were allowed to be designers. So a lot of the attacks stem from, why would I buy from you if I can buy from an international brand at the same price? And then they compare you to a fast fashion brand and it becomes really insulting. So we're allowed to be designers, especially if we put the hard work in to be those designers. And instead of like pushing each other down, we should celebrate our stories and our heritage and the beautiful creative industries that we have. And we're as good as like any international designer. I'm sure there are other brands that have bad quality materials and clothing, but not everyone is the same. So that's what I would say about resistance.
Okay, so let's talk about scale. So sustainable fashion is powerful at a small scale, like we were just saying. But what does it take to grow without losing your values? And do you think you can scale sustainability?
I think this is actually a really great question for Lipsy, because I think that actually our sustainability increases as we scale. So currently we only operate in Cairo. We started around 10 months ago now. And we are now in a place where finally we're expanding a little bit more, et cetera. And we really want to include other cities and actually also other countries in the region as well. It's what we've seen the other platforms I mentioned, Vinted and Depop, do. They're available across all of the US, available across all of Europe, connecting different countries. So the biggest thing that when I think about scaling a company like Lipsy is that there's so much opportunity to actually make the entire process sustainable, right? So like I mentioned, purely just buying a vintage piece over a fast fashion piece or a new item. And by the way, a lot of the items on the application are new, but they've just are owned by someone else. Is that we're able to think about the process. Thank you. So that we're able to think about the process of how we get these things to people, et cetera. So what we're really hoping, for example, and planning for is to make the actual transport of these products, right, emissions free, for example, using electrical vehicles, et cetera, using drop off and pickup points to actually reduce the impact on the environment even more. So that is really our hope with scaling, and I think that Lipsy is the ultimate example of where it'll actually be even more sustainable as we grow, because more people are participating in that circular economy, right? That's what we call what we're building. The more people are part of that circular economy, the more powerful it becomes, the more sustainable it becomes, and the less people will also reach out to more standard channels of consuming, right? And consuming at a very, very mass scale. If you buy one very nice quality vintage bag, I'm sure you don't need to buy 25 other ones because it'll probably break a lot less quickly, be of higher quality, and it'll be timeless piece. And I think that's also what I really resonated with what you said about the timelessness of pieces, and that because heart and soul went into making something, that it's going to stick with you for a longer time. And I think that's such a huge win in fashion when you know that this is going to stay with you. And the beauty of being able to sell and buy on a platform like Lipsy is that that maybe that piece has also had a story with someone else already. It's timeless. So I think that hopefully answers a bit of your question about scale and sustainability.
Is it? I think so, yeah. It is. I would actually say that what Lara is saying is so true. And when it comes to vintage pieces, I honestly love vintage pieces. I have so many vintage pieces that are very, very, very close to my heart. And they're one of the, all my vintage pieces are most of the pieces that I get compliments on most of the time. And everyone will be like, oh, where did you get this piece from? And I'm like, oh, so there's this French lady who was selling her clothes before she was leaving Egypt. So I went there, and there's this specific shirt that my sister always calls, oh, that French lady's shirt, where did it go? I wanted to wear it today. I'm it doesn't have to be that. But they're honestly very close to my heart, and I love them so much. And when it comes to Upfuse and it comes to scaling, honestly, it needs... So I would say when Upfuse started from our co-founder's house in in her corridor. Basically, she had 5-6 bags lying there, and she was making everything on her own and trying to perfect it one by one. But the scaling that happened from the start till now, 10 years later, when we're talking about the B2C market, I would say that when we're coming up with a new product, it's very important we can make 500 pieces of the product. It's doable because plastic is everywhere and trash is lying there, and the raw material is present, and you have so much that could cover years and years and years and years of manufacturing. But you need to be very well aware that taking trash and turning it into a new format is not changing the idea if it's going to still lie in inventory. So you need to be very well aware how much should you be producing, and even if it's going to put you in a pickle. So let's say this bag we've only produced 20 pieces from. If we actually start selling the bag and the bag goes out of stock and there is still demand but I don't have the bag, it's probably going to take me, let's say, at least 10 days to produce the bag. Probably the person who wanted the bag will not hang in there to buy the bag. So it's going to make me lose some sales. But at the end of the day, that's better than just keeping bags or products lying there without being purchased or used, because now the waste has been turned into a different form, but it is still wasteful at the end of the day. So this is one thing. Another thing is when we're working with businesses and they need, for example, 100 piece of the bag. So the 100 pieces, we can create them. But to create the 100 pieces and actually to give the fair wages and to give the appropriate working hours for the artisans, I need to set a certain timeline that the business needs to stick with. And that sometimes makes us lose deals because at the end of the day, they want their things to be ready in 3 days max. How am I going to make everything from start to finish in 3 days? This means I either have to put the artisans under so much pressure and stress to produce all of this in that limited time frame, which is not something that we want to do. So we need to be very clear. We need to set our foot down and be like, okay, if you want this product and you need this specific quantity, you will need to wait for X amount of time because this is how we get things done here. And by time, I would say we started establishing this flora and this plan, and people started seeing, when they started to see the value behind the product and started to understand why this takes time. And this is our part to educate not only consumers but businesses. This takes time because this is not your convenient way of doing it, and this will take time because the process is broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, and each will take time. So for me to give you a product of high quality and to make sure that I'm not compromising any of the steps or any of the people included in the steps, this has to be the plan. So we try to do our best when it comes to scaling, but there are certain points that maybe are obstacles, but I would say it's kind of the beauty of it, and you cannot compromise these certain stages to reach scalability. So doing it in different ways, or maybe having creating more job opportunities and having more creating more job opportunities and having the vocational trainings and increasing the amount of women that we're working with is definitely the way that we're trying to solve these problems, working with more women, more refugees. And honestly, when we get bigger orders, they're very happy because they feel like, oh, okay, it's kind of bonus time for them. It's like, okay, I'll talk to my sister and I'll bring her along because she'd be happy to have this extra income. Or this is the way where I can like get my son a new gift because now I can like actually do more and like I have a new project to work on. So it's definitely, it has like its good sides and bad sides, but the most important thing for us is to actually stick to our grounds and to make sure if we're scaling, we're doing it the right way with no compromises.
So in our case, so it comes with slow fashion, naturally. One of the things we try to do is, like Bahga said, not overstock on products. And at the same time, are we going to ever reach a point where we're producing 100,000, 200,000 of a single design in a single color? Not necessarily. But at the end of the day, if you look at it from a business perspective, if you are going to buy a piece of garment, let's say something that you can wear in 3 different ways, okay? It costs 3 times the price of when you buy a single fast fashion garment. There is cost per wear for the consumer. There is, yes, it's a higher price, but if you look at how long you can wear it and in how many ways you can wear it, this one single price or one single item to the price of 3, you will make the same margins on it. You will make the same profitability as in fast fashion on 3 items. So from a business perspective, we know that scaling might not be in the number of units sold, but we will just be making the same amount of money. Also, a lot of the fashion experts over the world, like 2 of them are very interesting. They're called Matilda Tam and Kate, now I forgot her name, but Matilda Tam, if you look her up, they have an action plan that they published in 2019, and one of the items were grow out of growth.
So this mindset of we need to continue growing at this exponential rate does not really align with human nature and the planet nature as well in regenerating itself. So if we still grow to maintain our own sustainability as businesses and the jobs we created and the positive impact we created is important, but it doesn't have to be at that scale. You can still sell for, instead of selling for $100 million, sell for $50 million, but make the same amount of profit. And so this mindset shift needs to come from the investor side because they don't see it yet, especially middle-aged men, specifically this category. They don't see it yet because they're really stuck in a certain way of doing business. And you'll find that a lot of the brands, not just because of the nature of fashion, but also sustainable brands, and this was a question by a GIU fashion professor because he works with us a lot. He's like, I only worked with women in sustainable fashion. And so our perspective, because of maybe we are more nurturing as women by nature and so on, you see the different changes that can happen, but it will take men more time, and especially the investor category, to catch up to this perspective. We can scale, but the scale is different, and our ultimate aim is a bit different. So to find this patient investor is hard. And from a consumer perspective, they need to shift their mindset a bit, and I think it's working bit by bit. Like buying vintage means they will buy a very unique piece and they won't find, I can't look at Lara and see, oh, I really love her jacket, and I'll find her jacket. No, I'll find a similar jacket, and that's the same. And I'll pass around a product that we had also a similar conversation with a customer with. It's made out of our own fabric waste. It's a corset, double-sided. So I'll pass it on to you guys to just take a look at both sides and to imagine what the customer experience was like. So basically what happened is we had a certain cotton, and this cotton, we have it in slightly varying shades. And we wanted to do a double-sided corset with the fabric waste of this striped fabric. She noticed that two different designs, but same striped material in two different colors, were slightly off and like not the same color. Like a red striped one, the back of it is not the same off-white as this off-white. And so she asked me online, she's like, can I make sure that it's the darker off-white? So I had to like tell her that this is fabric waste of our own production. So we will make sure to find like the darker shade for you. But as you can expect, these products have variations, because if I'm going to do something out of waste and out of fabric waste, this means the amount of waste I have is limited. So people need to also start like in standardized looking products to get used to the idea that there will be variations. A hand embroidered shirt, if you look at both shirts, it won't be exactly the same because it's a woman embroidering on her hand drawing, and it's as if you're repeating an illustration for like 5, 6, 10, 20 times. So imagine, and even if it's not one lady, like it's the same design, but 3 different women are working on it. It's their hand. It's like you're drawing. So imagine how is it going to look like? It's not going to be 100% the same. Accepting that from the consumer side is also taking time, but more and more people are getting on board with this. So the customer did end up buying the corset, and she came and chose the exact shade that she wanted. Instead of buying it online, she came to the shop, and it made her more comfortable to do that. And she texted me later telling me she's really happy with the color that she found and that she changed her mind in the store. Like she took the lighter shade, not the darker shade. So these are the kind of things we need to like deal with in terms of scalability.
I have one last question. So if you can ask everyone here to change just one habit, what would you say?
Just one habit.
Yeah.
I have so many habits in mind.
What's the most important?
Fashion.
Yeah.
Like, not in life.
Start. If you can't think of. I think mine is very cliche, but obviously thrift and so very cliche marketing moment for me. But yeah, I think that kind of integrating that into your day-to-day life. I've been doing it now for 10 years personally, and now building this business for less than a year. And yeah, it's a great source of extra income. It's a great way to declutter your house, declutter your closet, and it's obviously a very, very great way to shop. So if there's a new habit that you walk away with today, it's definitely thrift and sell your clothes on Lipsy.
I would be the first in line. دلوقتي I have so much يعني I have a lot of pieces that I couldn't donate because they don't look like pieces that you can donate. I would always say that. And I feel like I've always been waiting for the moment of like, oh, I'm just going to have like a garage sale with my friends because this is one of the things that we sometimes used to do. Okay, it could be swapping things with your friends. This could be one of the things that I can say because I had like this leather pants that I loved very much, but they don't fit me comfortably now. So I just was like, you know what? My friend was at my house and she was like, this is nice. I was like, okay, it's yours. Just take it. You can give it more life than I can. So just like, go ahead. And one of the other things I would say that is stemming from what Norhan said is the idea of not jumping straight into the purchase. Just think about it. Take your time. Think, do I really need this piece, first of all? Second of all, am I going to get enough wear out of this piece? Well, is it going to be a one-time thing? And I'm probably not going to see it, nor hear about it, nor want to wear it ever again. So, and it's over. Because some of the pieces that I honestly own are pieces I was very interested in when I first saw them. And then I probably wore them once and I was like, okay, I don't think I can style this in so many ways. I don't think this is going to be coming along with me at so many places. So I think I'm not very sure and I'm going to wear it again. And I was like, okay, in the next year, if I don't wear it again, I'm going to actually donate it or give it to a friend of mine. Because I think if it takes me more than a year, then I don't think there's coming back to this piece. And that's one of the things that I would say, like, think about it. And when you're buying the product, as Norhan was saying, just please make sure that the fabric of the garment that you're buying is actually going to be durable enough. It's not going to be, maybe the product is not with a hefty price tag and it's actually cheap and you can buy it easily, but you need to think of how this garment is going to live with you. Am I going to wear it only 2-3 times and it's probably going to look weird and I'm not going to be able to wear it again? It's not going to look put together anymore. So I'm probably going to let it just sit in a corner and I'll probably not ever reach out to it or even see it in my wardrobe. So just take these minor things into consideration, sleep on it, see if you actually do need it. If you can't stop thinking about it for a month, who was saying a month? I would say, honestly speaking, I give it 3 days. If I can't stop thinking about it, and before it gets sold out, that's one other thing, I would probably go out for it. So just like think of these minor things and just see if it resonates with you, not only today, but on the long term. Just go ahead and buy it, and you're going to thank yourself later.
I'm so glad you said this because now I can say something else. I would say find your personal style. Like, don't follow trends because trends are designed to discard and purchase more. There is a reason, an economic reason to it more than it's just an aesthetic reason. It's to continue the cycle of hyper-inflated growth of businesses. And so if you find your own personal style that maybe it's a bit classic, maybe it's eccentric, maybe it's eclectic. There are so many personas that you can adopt, and it's actually much more. I find it you complement people who have unique personal styles, not the ones who follow necessarily trends. Similar to what I think you were the ones who you said that your vintage pieces are the ones that are complemented the most. Imagine someone dressed very, very special, but from pieces from all over the world. These are the things that get attention, actually. More than the trend that when you walk into a certain restaurant or a certain mall or somewhere and you find everyone wearing the same thing. You get tired, you get bored. So I think finding your own personal style is a way of, it's a very exciting also way because it gives you something to work on creatively that has to do with your own self-expression, where you disconnect from the trends and what we keep seeing on social media and what we have to buy and look. Looking your own unique self with your own background, where you come from, your interests, your occupation, it has a lot to do with that. So over the years, my styles changed into a more classic, timeless look with hints of, vintage pieces in it. So now I love that more than just buying things that look normal in any other store you would see.
I have a tip. Always check your tags. Always check the material list. It's so important. If you have to take anything away, it's this. Like, recycling is really, really tricky. It's almost impossible to recycle blended fabrics. So if you're gonna buy anything, if you're gonna buy polyester, make sure it's 100% polyester. If you're gonna buy cotton, make sure it's 100% cotton. Because that just makes the recycling process a lot easier because it's already very fuel intensive. So yeah, that's my takeaway. Now I'm opening it to questions. If anyone has questions, we're here to answer.
So my question is for the three of you. So obviously we know that sustainable and ethical fashion is expensive, and it costs a lot to produce, and that the cost per wear can actually be much less than fast fashion. But as a business, how do you communicate to a customer that is on budget? To how can it be justified for them, maybe a customer with a lower income or something, to spend more? How can you convince them that spending more can actually be can save money for them?
So I think basically that's a very important question. And secondhand and thrifting gives us a huge spectrum of what you can buy. So you don't have to buy. It's similar to your purchasing decisions when you forget sustainable fashion. When you are shopping normally, there are brands that you can shop from and brands you cannot. And there's segmentation and marketing and there are different customer criteria. Some people will buy something expensive once every 5 years as a gift to someone or something to pamper themselves. Some people can afford buying more of that. Some people are in between, So you don't necessarily have to shop the most expensive brand. There is a positioning to it and the market is big. There are customers who can afford it, and if someone cannot afford that, they can thrift or buy secondhand. And so that's from your side in terms of what you can do in terms of decision making. For the other side, what I communicate to my customers is I'm very honest to them, like the corset that you just saw right now. So this corset, for instance, did you like the quality of it? Did you see that it's a very high quality product? Did you see that it's double-sided and you can wear it in two different ways completely? Is it still too expensive to you, or is this item you can take and invest in it even if you're going to buy fewer items? So that's the decision-making process we help our customers reach. If they like it a lot, and we take in continuous feedback. So for instance, this corset, because it's so structured, some people need it to be shorter from here, so we offer alterations. So when you find that the service is expansive, there is a lot of services in this brand. It's not just buying an item and leaving. And you think of it, when you buy anything in a shop, odds are they don't offer alterations or they don't offer fixing. We change the zippers for free because the zipper quality in Egypt is horrible, for instance. So if this is a service you're getting, you will pay the extra money because you'll end up spending less. There's a saying actually that says the cheap item make a poor person poorer, and a more expensive item make you richer, because you will end up buying it and wearing it for 20 years, 25 years. Think of a leather bag, for instance. And leather, there's a huge question mark on it in terms of sustainability and so on. But for instance, leather in Egypt is a byproduct of food. Otherwise, it would be wasted. So if you buy local leather from Egypt, and especially if it's tanned in a natural way, then this is something you know will last in your wardrobe forever. You can keep on taking care of it, you can fix it. We have a gazmagi in Egypt that is not something you'll easily find in other countries of the world. So you will find yourself wearing it over a very long time, and you won't need to discard it that much and replace it with something else.
To برضو emphasize on what Norhan said, you mentioned all the important points, to be honest. And as what a brand could offer, which is, for Norhan's case, she's actually offering alterations. And for Upfuse's case, we're actually offering repair service. So I don't want you to come to Upfuse every day to buy a new product. It's the idea of you buying a product, and this product is going to stick with you for as long as you would want to have it. So if you come up to Upfuse and you're like, okay, I think my bag, the plastic, there is a problem that's going on with it. Can you please fix it? I can actually tell you how to fix it at home, first of all, because it's easily fixed with heat. So that's one thing. So we created actually awareness videos and like informative videos on how can you solve this problem at home without actually going to anyone or doing anything. That's one thing. Another thing, if it's actually something that is more of like sewing techniques or like more of like a professional work, you can actually bring it to us and we can fix it and give it back to you. So the idea is, how can you maximize the wear of the product that you love? You bought this product for a reason, and you want this product to stick with you for as long as you can. So if the brand is actually putting the time and the effort to give you a full circular package of not only coming here to shop a product, and this is where the relationship ends, and it's always an open conversation of how I can be here if you need, how can I answer your questions, first of all, before you even purchase the product. How can I provide you with details on how this product was made, who made the product, and giving you the visibility and the understanding of why is the product with this specific price tag. Because at the end of the day, some people think that the product, because it's made out of plastic and it's at the end of the day waste, why are you charging me this price point? Because at the end of the day, at the back of their heads, they're thinking this was in a landfill at the end of the day. Why am I being charged? This didn't cost you anything, but it actually does cost you a lot. And a lot of, let's say, if we're taking water, for instance, why are brands that are selling water not recycling their bottles and actually making new bottles? Because it's actually cheaper for them to make a new bottle instead of recycling the old bottle. So the idea of recycling and upcycling in itself takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to put fabric pieces together and to make a new item out of them and to give those pieces life. This takes a lot of time. And to work with manufacturers, if you're working outside of your workshop, they wouldn't take you because you're coming here for with a material that you're just giving me leftovers to piece and to put together, which costs them time and effort, which they can put in another garment that's going to equate to 10 garments that they can do if they're doing one of yours. So there are a lot of hidden costs that people can see. They see the final product, and I see that at the end of the day, it's the brand's responsibility to keep on communicating what's happening behind the scenes so people can understand and validate the price tag themselves and see the idea behind the product and the value behind it, not only the final product that they're seeing and the after sales service that they're going to be getting as well. So this full circular package is very important from the brand's end and from the customer's end as well.
I think I'm still trying to structure a little bit because there's so much that in that question that hits to things that are really close to home for us at Lipsy. I think part of that is also definitely this kind of ick that I have to the fashion world that makes it seem like you have to spend a lot of money to look good, right? So you have to spend a lot of money to be fashionable, and I think that that's something that we're really combating with our platform, by first of all allowing people, obviously, or empowering people to make money by selling their clothes and participating in circular economy. Selling is also for free. This was also a value that I argued with a lot of investors on, that I put my foot down and said, fashion needs to be accessible. People don't need to feel like they have to pay a price tag to be, part of this world. And then when it comes to even items, right? So when you thrift as well, or secondhand or vintage, a lot of people think it's cheaper, but sometimes actually way more expensive because of how rare a piece could be. To that, I would say to a customer, right, you're investing in heritage, you're investing in a piece of art that's going to live with you, hopefully for a long time, and actually is also going to increase in value over time. So it's kind of an investment, A. B, the quality of this item is really good, and that has a lot to do with what you both mentioned, right, is that you're also investing in longevity, you're investing in something that's going to stick with you for longer. So buying a shirt for £200 of really, really bad material that's going to last you a month, if you do some quick math, right, it's a lot smarter to buy a vintage piece. But also that something that I really pride our platform on is that we allow people to buy items from all ranges of prices. So I'm very against the idea that fashion is something that is very gate-kept and you have to spend a lot of money on and all these things. I don't believe in that at all. Some of the most fashionable people I know do not spend fortunes on their clothing because they are creative, because they love the piece that they wear, because they're able to style it in multiple ways. So yeah, when consumers question price point, which is very understandable, I think that Lipsy has a lot of answers in that, in just allowing people to deal with the market in a different way. But I also do think it's always thinking about, right, what am I, just conscious consumerism is not just a term that we throw around. It's literally being conscious about how you're spending your money. And I think that that's very important and something that we can all still learn so much more about. But also when it comes to thinking, yeah, I need to spend a lot of money, why would I? Or, also being maybe more flexible with your budget and catering as a brand or a platform to people with different budgets, and making sure that you always stay accessible, I think is very, very important for anyone building anything at this time.
Okay, so we're gonna end the conversation here. Diwan has to close, but yeah. But thank you all for coming today. It was a pleasure to see you all, and yeah, thank you for coming as well.